The disclaimer, sound check, sound check. My husband is in the living room. So if you see me blushing in this video, but they won't be blushing because it's Bible study. Okay? This is the sound check. This is the sound check, second sound check. I will be honest and say that I'm so glad that I've been consistent this month because I have been able to find a rhythm. I found new positions in the house with Bruce and Alice behind me and Lily at the far end. I'm just going to check if the audio is just right. The lighting is so crispy. But yeah, let's just check and then get right into the word. So welcome to my YouTube channel. The name is Gorata.Selaledi, and so excited as we come to the very last Friday for the month of June. So nervous because there's another human being in the room. But just to welcome you to my channel. If you are only tuning in for the first time, please do click on that subscription button and click on the notification bell so that you're notified when new videos come up. New videos every Sunday, Monday, and Friday. And to the returning subscribers, thank you so much for following on along this journey. I'm hoping and believing that it will be a fruitful one, given that we are going to be here for a number of years as we try read our Bible one chapter a week. And today we are going to be reflecting on Genesis 6. And if you are a returning subscriber, I hope that you have a few nuggets from Genesis 5 that you took away, I think, from the long list of names and the many years that we recorded from the people that were alive at that time. And today we're going to be moving on to chapter 6, and I hope that you have your Bible with you. I have mine here. And as per norm, I am going to be reading the whole chapter in your hearing, and I'm just going to share a few notes in terms of what stood out for me, having had read Genesis 6. And I do hope that you will also make time to just reflect on what God is saying to you. I believe that God is still speaking, in as much as He was telling us the story of Noah. He is still able to actually do something in your life with the word that we are reading today. But yeah, so let's get into the word for real. Alright, so we are reading from Genesis 6, and I'm going to be reading in the King James Version. In your hearing, Genesis 6 says, "And it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repented me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man, and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with God." And that's Mr. Bailey. "And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth." I'm just going to pause and go get some water. Alright, So from verse 13 it says, And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make it in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set it in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee, and keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according... I pause because the young ones, when they bark in the house, it becomes very loud on the mic. So thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him, so did he. And that concludes the reading of Genesis chapter 6. So I had a number of moments when I was reading through Genesis 6 now in your hearing that kind of popped up. A bit of commentary when I read about, I guess, the ark on verse 15, where it says, And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, and the breadth 50 cubits, and the height 30 cubits. Something I was thinking about is just how detail-oriented God is, to say, I'm not just going to give you an instruction to just build this ark, but I am going to give you the dimensions. I am going to give you, go to the T, how big this ark should be. And something that I also thought about was how probably the first skyscraper, not even a skyscraper because it's only 3 floors, but when he talks about lower, second, and third stories, I'm just thinking, I guess, about the architectural integrity. I don't know if that's a word that came into building the ark, but just thinking about how the design of it truly mattered, given I'd say how big the project was supposed to be in this case. And something that also stood out was verse 6, where it said, And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart, right? So that stood out for me to say that such a big God still could carry emotion in his heart, to say that he was grieved by what was happening. I think I imagine it as maybe having had created something and it doesn't work, or it doesn't turn out the way that you thought it would turn out. Imagining like a painting that maybe you painted and took so much time to paint, but it turned out maybe not as you had envisioned it in your mind. And I can only imagine, I think, from the perspective of God in this case, where you're seeing not only your creation here on earth, but the angels are also being mentioned at the beginning of Genesis 6, where I guess this is probably part of the third that left with the devil. that are now deciding to marry, I'd say, women here on the earth, right? And there are children that are mentioned that are being born from this union of angels and human beings. And I know that in one translation it also highlights, and I noted it down here on my notes, that the children that were born of, I'd say, the angels and humans were called Nephilim, right? So it was I'd say, an anomaly in this case, because it was a creature that was not created by God, but came of because of, I'd say, probably ultimate sin. And I can only imagine that God is quite deliberate in how he makes his decision making, in as much as in this moment he was grieved seeing what was happening and what was transpiring. And I think the grief also comes from the fact that he can actually see how far out or what's going to happen if his creation sticks to this path, right? And it's very sad, I guess, in this case, that the ultimate decision here was to destroy what had created, like completely wiping it out. And just thinking out loud, I think it would have been nice if he just wiped it out and maybe just started all over again with the Garden of Eden. But he chose not to, right? He chose Noah and his family to carry on the story. I guess to try see if it'll all work out in terms of carrying the seed and bringing people ultimately to, I'd say, complete salvation, right? So the story went on with Noah, and we see here in verse 8, it says that God found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And grace is usually defined as unmerited favor, right? But we are told here that Noah was a just and perfect man in his generation. And I can only imagine that in reading that, we might look at it and say that it qualified him to be chosen to stand and take up the project with God. But I think the fact that he had, I'd say, a relationship with God, it probably made it easier for God to then say, you know what, I'm going to choose this person to run with this project. But I don't believe that the perfection that is mentioned here was that he was not sinful, I guess, because sin did exist in this time, right? And I've watched some movie, I think it's there on Netflix. It talks of the story of Noah, and the depiction of it is quite interesting because it shows, I'd say, the humanness of Noah's family, when it kind of just shows the different dynamics that existed between Noah's children. I think when we go to 7 and 8, we will get to see a bit of that as well, and 9. Yeah, but you get to see Noah's humanness, right? But the one differentiator that I'm seeing here, and that I believe was the reason why God chose to do this big project with, was because out of everything that God had outlined in terms of setting up this ark project, if I was to call it that, Noah's noted here at the end of Genesis 6 verse 22, God says that Noah did according to all that God had commanded him. So did he. And I can only imagine that probably sounded crazy. And in the movie, I like the fact that it kind of closes the gap of how that would have happened, because it's one man at a time and a place where there's hardly no trees. And what happens in this movie, there's a seed that is in one of his dreams. My battery is low, I gotta charge. In one of his dreams, and the seed is planted when he, I guess, says yes to God. And as the seed spreads and starts growing, there's like a little stream that grows out, and it goes out and now like ends up where the animals are, and the animals start going to Noah. I can imagine it took a lot of imagination there. But having to say yes to that, like imagine having to take care of the animals that are all going to come to you, having to figure out how to get the food, how to build this big ship where there's no water, and having to contend with people calling you crazy. I can only imagine how that was during Noah's time. And I think having to maybe just speak to that in terms of what stands out having had shared that, and just how crazy Noah's faith should have been for him to take that leap of faith, for him to actually step out and say, you know what, I am going to build this ship. I believe that it took so much from him in terms of faith. And I believe that from Noah's story, we can learn so much, even going into this new week, to say that there are certain things that are placed before us that feel impossible. Even as we think about it, the vision might feel heavy, or the vision might feel as if it's too big to carry. But I believe that knowing that God is on our side and God is on our corner, there's so much hope that can actually exist in our hearts, that can actually build and fuel us up and give us motivation to face the day, in as much as the goal might feel insurmountable. I'm not sure if I used the right word. But yeah, let me get into, I'll say, the few notes that I noted down when I listened to Genesis 6 and I read through it before my battery dies. I also have to keep checking this mic because last time I recorded, yesterday actually, it died out, and I might have to re-record my Monday video because, yeah, I need to do it. Yeah, talking to me. Yeah, talking to you now. But yeah, I might be here a little longer, but I'm gonna go charge my phone after this. But let's get into yes, multitasking. Let's get into the notes that I have here. For Genesis 6, right? In as much as I've shared, I'd say, commentary that came from reading it out loud in your hearing today. Some of the notes that I noted here was that the children that were born from angels and humans were called Nephilim. And I remember reading a book, I think during my high school days, that talked about Nephilim. And when I found it in the Bible, I was like, whoa, that was quite interesting, because the story is actually about a boy who was from a line of Nephilim and he had superpowers. But I think it was just a love story about this boy who had superpowers, but I digress. So another note that I put down here was that God repented that he had created us. And I put 2 exclamation marks. It's like, this wild. I imagine now, imagine trying to make something out of clay and it's not coming out as it should be, and you just mash it up and put it back into a bowl after all that work, right? I can imagine the word repent here, going back to a conversation that I shared in one of my old videos, to say that God simply changed his mind. Like, this is not working, right? And I think just thinking about that now out loud, to then say that it didn't mean that he didn't value or love the creation that he had created. And I think from verse 6, where we see that it grieved him in his heart, right? It wasn't something that he was happy about, but he had to do, right? And something that I also noted was that Noah walked with God. There's a song in SDA that said, I don't wanna walk alone. I don't wanna walk alone. My husband is laughing. But that's what I imagine when I think about this statement, to say that Noah walked with God, right? And even going into the month of July, given that this will be the last Friday of the year, just thinking about how in all that we do, throughout our work, in our families, in our friendships, in any space that you occupy, here's to really just embracing the fact that God is there with you. So even as you make your decisions, even as you feel stuck or overwhelmed, just shout in your heart and God will surely actually attend to you. And I hope that you will be able to actually spot him doing a miracle in your life in that moment when you call him, right? So what I noted as well, I'm hoping my battery's not going to die, but I'm just going to read out the whole thing and then summarize today's video. So what I wrote down is that we sometimes pick and choose when we want to involve God, but the covenant of grace is applied when we give in and walk alongside God daily. I haven't been doing it daily. I guess that was a confession at the time. These notes were from the 4th of March this year. Today, I haven't been doing it daily since the beginning of the year. But what I take away from Genesis 6, and I think just as an admonition to you and myself, that all that God commanded, Noah did, right? Might not be easy, but I think God graces us with a new day for us to actually try again. So even as we move into this new month, I hope that each new day will come with an opportunity for you to actually try to do this life thing with God. Like my little sister has this thing on her status, on her profile. It says, I highly recommend doing life with God. And I think that summarizes, I think, the thought of doing everything and doing all that God commands us in our life, right? Because I believe that through each and every word that God gives us, there's just so much goodness that's going to be poured out into your life, that's going to be poured out into my life, into the month of July. And I hope that even as we reflect on Noah's story, we can also just reflect on our lives to say in which areas am I yet to actually surrender to God for Him to work on. And for me personally, is my health, because yay, my face is getting around, guys. But for July, our commitment in our family will be honoring God with our bodies, I believe, and just working at making better decisions in terms of what we take in, and also just maximizing movement. I don't know what it looks like for you, right? So the big so what in terms of Genesis 6 and Noah's story as the big takeaways to say we need to learn to do all that God commands us. I don't know what that looks like for you, but I hope that you will take time after watching this video, whenever you're watching this video, to actually just do a life audit and see which area you want to actually try with God as you go into the rest of the day and the rest of the year. It has been lovely. I am actually rambling to this finish, but thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Gorata.Selaledi. I pray that may God's favor locate you and may His grace sustain you throughout the weekend. Yep, my battery's at 10% now. Throughout the weekend, and see you in July. Goodbye for me. As a disclaimer, I feel so nervous recording with my husband on the couch, and he's laughing right now.